All right, let's get straight into it. We're doing a technical briefing on what's called the Morphean Cosmology Framework, or MCF. Now, the material we're looking at here presents this not as just another theory, but as a literal mechanical blueprint for reality. It's a fundamental shift from just asking what happens to explaining exactly how it works.
And this quote, it really gets to the heart of the whole philosophy here. The core idea is that reality itself is never, ever contradictory. So if we run into a paradox in our physics, that doesn't point to some weird feature of the universe. It points to a flaw in our own understanding. The entire MCF architecture is built from the ground up to eliminate these paradoxes with purely mechanical answers.
So here's how we're going to break this down. We'll start with the foundational problem the framework says it solves. Then we'll introduce its core component, explore how that thing actually operates, see how it completely redefines gravity, and then we'll look at the absolutely massive scope of this proposed blueprint.
Okay, so the whole Morphean Cosmology Framework is built to solve one specific foundational problem that it identifies right at the very core of modern physics. It calls this the space-time contradiction.
And here it is. It's actually pretty simple. A true vacuum, by its very definition, is absolute nothing, emptiness. Yet mainstream physics gives it real, measurable properties like electric permittivity and magnetic permeability. The position of the MCF is, you just can't have it both ways. How can nothing have properties? Properties need a medium. This right here is the contradiction it's designed to resolve.
So, to fix that contradiction, the framework proposes a mechanical solution. It says space isn't empty at all. It's completely filled with a physical, space-filling medium. And here's the side-by-side. You've got the standard model, which says space is an empty vacuum. Then you have the MCF, which proposes this thing called the plasma substrate. It describes it as a packed, geometric, and viscoelastic medium. That viscoelastic part is key. It means it can deform under pressure, kind of like a fluid, but it can also snap right back to its original shape, like a solid.
This visual gives you the fish-egg analogy they use to describe it. Just imagine a bunch of flexible spheres packed so tightly together that the pressure squishes them into these polyhedral shapes, getting rid of any gaps. These individual units can be pushed around and deformed, but they can't merge and they can't be destroyed. This is the proposed fundamental building block of space itself.
So these four properties are absolutely crucial to understand. 1, it's viscoelastic. It can deform and snap back. 2, it's completely packed, 0 gaps. 3, the units have a constant volume. They just push their neighbors around. They don't merge like soap bubbles. And 4, because of all this, the entire substrate acts as a single, continuous, responsive medium that carries all force.
Okay, so if space is this active, packed medium, how does energy actually get from one place to another? Well, the framework calls this process field aerodynamics. It's all about how forces propagate, not through a void, but through the mechanics of the phasma itself.
Now, this is a critical distinction. The core mechanism is called the compass needle effect. And the key idea is that the units of the phasma don't actually travel anywhere to transmit a force. Instead, the force is passed along when something inside each unit changes its orientation, creating a kind of domino effect through the entire field. This image makes it really clear. Think about a compass needle. It aligns with the magnetic field, but the compass itself doesn't move. In the same way, the framework proposes that internal dipoles inside each phasma unit rotate to align with fields. Their actual position in the grid stays locked, it's just their internal orientation that changes. And that chain reaction of reorienting is the field propagating.
So what you end up with is the state of dual equilibrium. The substrate is constantly in a balancing act between two different forces at the same time. You've got mechanical equilibrium, where the shapes of the little polyhedra are adjusting to physical pressure. And at the same exact time, you have electrostatic equilibrium, where the internal dipoles are orienting themselves to align with electric fields. This dual system, in theory, allows the substrate to respond instantly to both kinds of forces.
Okay, so if that's the medium, and that's how force moves, what does that mean for the biggest force of them all? Gravity. This is where the framework suggests a total mechanical re-engineering of what gravity even is. Instead of thinking about gravity as some abstract curvature of space-time, the MCF defines it mechanically as wedge pressure. In this model, massive objects are literally deforming the phasma substrate, pushing it out of shape. This creates a pressure gradient. So other objects aren't being pulled by some mysterious force. No, they're being channeled through this geometric dent, almost like water flowing downhill into a ditch. It's presented as a direct mechanical cause and effect.
And this is where you can see how this mechanical model gets applied across the board. It suggests that abstract placeholders like dark matter just aren't needed anymore. You know the weird rotation of galaxies? It isn't caused by some invisible mass. It's explained as simple resistance from the plasma grid. Gravitational lensing isn't space-time bending. It's a direct result of that plasma pressure deformation we just talked about. Even something as wild as time dilation is reframed mechanically as a resonant phase mismatch. Basically, clocks in different pressure zones of the plasma are vibrating at slightly different frequencies, so they drift out of sync.
This distinction really gets to the core of the MCF's entire philosophy. It splits science into two stages. Most of what we do now it calls Stage 1, which is focused on measuring and describing what happens. For instance, light bends near a massive object. That's an observation. The framework positions itself as Stage 2 science, which is all about explaining the mechanical how and why. So the explanation becomes plasma deformation channels light. See the difference? It's a shift from just observation to pure mechanism.
So for this last part, let's zoom all the way out and just take in the sheer scale of this framework. Talk about who's behind it and the context it's all been presented in.
And the scope this framework claims is, well, it's vast. This isn't just a theory of physics. It claims to be a single, coherent, mechanical structure that unifies 34 different domains of knowledge. We're talking everything from quantum mechanics and cosmology all the way to ethics and theology. A single blueprint for the whole shebang.
And here's the central claim, which the source documents say has been verified by computational analysis. It supposedly achieves this massive unification with zero internal paradoxes. It's presented not just as a theory, but as a completely self-consistent logical architecture.
And for proper context, the framework needs to be attributed to its originator, Christos Sotirelis, who also goes by the name Morpheas, which means the Shape Master.
The work itself is also released under a very specific license, the MCF LP. It's totally free for anyone to study and use for research, but, and this is a big but, it's strictly prohibited to sell it, to modify it, or to create derivatives of the core architecture. And you absolutely have to give attribution. The stated goal here is to make sure the knowledge is open for everyone, while protecting it from being misused or commercially exploited.
And this quote from the creator really sums up the whole philosophy behind that license. There's a very clear line drawn between the knowledge itself, which is presented as something to be shared, and any actual products that might be built from it later on.
And that leaves us with one final and pretty heavy question. This framework presents itself as the literal schematic for how reality is built. So, if a blueprint like that were ever proven to be true, what would possessing it actually mean? That's a question that goes way beyond physics. It touches on the very nature of knowledge, discovery, and our own responsibility.